artists that have interested me over the years, or who have worked with ideas that I find intriguing. This image is regarding the origin of, the mythical origin of painting. According to the Greeks, it was a woman tracing her lover's shadow before he left to go to war. And this is a version by the Russian artist Komar and Melvin, and it was what they titled it "The Origins of Socialist Realism." And this is a painting by Georg Immendorf I think it's a self-portrait of himself in drag, kind of half clown, half artist, holding a small canvas. And this is by the American artist Eric Fischl. And the portrait of the artist is an old man. And this is a creative monkey having a good time. And this is by another American artist, Mark Tansley, and it's some kind of scientific experiment whereby a cow is being shown a painting of a cow. This is a French 18th century painter. The theme of the monkey painter has always interested me, and it kind of comes across various periods in my work. This is by Malcolm Morley, The Ultimate Anxiety. The train kind of crashing into this Venetian quote. There's another piece by Malcolm Morley. In this piece, he has actually stuck a knife into, I don't know if you can see it, just there diagonally into the canvas. So I'm quite interested in how he uses destruction as part of his creative process. And this is by Frida Kahlo, The Two Fridas, is the title of the work. It's a double self-portrait. And this is Philippe de Champagne, and he painted this, I believe, it's like a study for a sculpture, for a bust. But I'm quite interested in the kind of the triple aspect of it. And this is by George Kondo, kind of a humorous take on a Barnett Newman zip on the side, and the Picasso-esque cartoon figure. And so this is the first of my own images. I did mention I grew up in Mexico, and my mother's American, my father's Mexican, and I was very fortunate to be able to live and study in different countries. So I grew up in Mexico, and then I studied in California for my BA, and then I lived in Paris for 10 years, and I've been in London now for 7 years. So there's a kind of a mix of different influences certainly in my education. This piece is from 1995, and it's titled Colossus, as the original Goya piece it references. And it's part of a whole series that I worked on for several years, in which I juxtaposed objects from pop culture, usually toys or a lot of children's toys, with images from art history. And the characters would operate a bit as puppets. I would paint through them in the way of a ventriloquist. And so there were many kind of different approaches to painting within the work. There would be kind of the bunny painting an abstract expressionist, monochrome painting, or on top of a Goya, and then he would be, or she would be, kind of a pop element. And in some of the paintings, there are puns, language puns involved that don't always translate into English. In this case, the word in French for rabbit is lapin, and it's also the beginning of la peinture, the beginning of the word painting. So there's some of the paintings involve kind of particular puns that either translate or do not. mostly German Meissen figures, which are already completely charged with a whole lot of art historical and mythological, all kinds of baggage. This one particularly was an allegory of painting, and I altered it in some areas. I took some of the figures that were in the original sculpture and just painted the monkey and added just the abstract blotches. This one, I haven't mentioned the scale of these. This is almost 2 meters high, so it's almost as high as these pieces here, and they're mostly in acrylic. So with a figure like this, I was kind of interested in playing with the whole kind of pull and push of reality and an illusion, and the figure saying, "I'm just nothing more than the paint that's behind me." This one, I apologize for the quality of the slide, is a vanity. It's quite large. It's about the same size as these pieces, but horizontal. And it's a clown painting a self-portrait in this kind of distorted mirror image. It became a death mask. This one is titled Hide and Seek. And it's, the Batman figures are in a constable fragment. I was looking at a constable book once, and I noticed that there are lots of lakes and rivers and kind of reflecting surfaces. And because I'm interested in the reflection and mirror images, I thought it might be an appropriate place to place my puppets in a way. And also, I think of painting as a process of covering and uncovering, and usually what you find is yourself, as in it was, art making in general. This one is a smaller piece, and it's acrylic and oil stick. The white frame is part of the painting, so it's painted. There's a white frame painted on the canvas, and I was trying to reference mass production of images and Polaroids, postcards. And I noticed that at the time I was living in Paris, and I kept seeing advertisements in the metro that were scribbled on, like graffiti on top of the images, and usually people would go for the faces. That's the first thing that is kind of liberated. So in a general way, I'm interested in different kinds of levels of mark making, between the illegitimate mark making or the cultured, knowledgeable brushstroke. There's kinds of keeping a whole range of practices within one practice. And this one is called Young Orphan in a Cemetery, which is the title of the original Delacroix. And again, the white frame is part of the painted surface. I was also interested in the romantic idea of the ruin. And at the time, this is in the mid-90s in France, it was very much an endgame situation with painting. It felt like everything